So in this video we are gonna see, what if Neglected Naruto joined Anbu in early age. This is part 1, and want more then hit the like button, share and subscribe for more. Let's get in the video. Hiruzen Sarutobi was sitting in the Hokage's office and let out a long sigh while looking out the window. Even though it was already 4 o'clock in the morning, the entire village of Konoha was still wide awake. Several hours earlier the village was attacked by the QB, the nine-tailed demon fox, and though the battle was short, many people died in the attack and there was a lot of damage. Even now there were still several fires around the larger civilian areas, and all shinobi were hard at work putting them out with water-based ninjutsu. Officially it was labeled a natural disaster, but he knew where the QB really came from, of course. It escaped from its imprisonment when Kushina Uzumaki, the wife of his successor Minato Namikaze and the previous Jinchuriki of the QB, underwent childbirth. For the last couple of weeks he and Minato went over the possibility of the seal loosening and how to prevent it from happening. It seemed however that their precautions weren't good enough and the demon managed to escape after all, killing its container in the process. Alongside Kushina, his own wife Bawako, who acted as the midwife, and several of the most senior Anbu also died. He could still feel the terrible killing intent and power from the beast when it attacked Konoha, and he could only imagine what his wife must have felt when it escaped and attacked them at point-blank range. His only solace is that the QB would have killed them quickly and saw no point in making them suffer. After the beast escaped however, it made a straight line for Konoha itself and launched a surprise attack in the middle of the night. Its first target happened to be a very large civilian area since it was located in the center of the city, while most of the ninjas live in their respective clan compounds and apartments closer to the edge. It took several minutes before most shinobi were ready to counterattack. But even that would have been a futile attempt had it not been for the 4th Hokage. After several minutes of desperately trying to stop the beast without much success, the 4th himself appeared on the battlefield alongside his summon Gamabunta the chief toad. He managed to teleport the beast away from the city and seal it away in his newborn son Naruto, thereby saving the town. Unfortunately he himself died in the summoning process in what looked like the QB's claw, penetrating his upper torso as its last act of defiance before it was sealed away inside Naruto. That was the scene he and 2 of his Anbu guards found when they reached the safe house Minato teleported the QB to. So with Minato dead and no successor ready to take his place, Hiruzen found himself once again in his old office with a baby in his arms and a village in despair, demanding actions to be taken. That's why he ordered the Anbu to inform all clan leaders and the elders that there would be an emergency meeting of the council to decide the future of Konoha and little Naruto, who was now sound asleep in his arms, unaware of the events which would now forever be associated with his birthday. "I demand that you kill that demon," said the representative of the civilian population. He looked at Naruto, still asleep despite the rather loud noises in the meeting room, with utter disgust in his eyes. Naruto himself is not the QB, but merely its container, Sarutobi tried to explain for the 100th time that night, and I will not tolerate killing innocent babies. The QB is too dangerous, we cannot risk it escaping again. Killing its container is the only way to destroy it for good, yelled the representative, wondering why the Hokage couldn't see reason. The seal of the 4th Hokage will hold the QB back. I can assure you there is no danger of it escaping again. We will not kill Naruto and that is final. The 3rd said while slamming his hand on the table, making it clear that the topic was hereby closed. What do you suggest we do about little Naruto then? Asked Shibi Aburam in the calm and logical tone his clan was known for. Does he have parents or legal guardians to take him in? No, his parents died in the attack today and he has no other family. The 3rd answered vaguely, not wanting to reveal exactly who his father was. We can't put him in the orphanage, he's too dangerous. I refuse it, said the civilian representative, still not entirely convinced that a simple seal can hold back a tailed beast. For the next 2 hours the council debated several possibilities, but all of them were shot down for various reasons. Getting adopted by a civilian family was impossible. Almost everyone lost someone in the attack and nobody would want to adopt the very demon they deemed responsible for it. The clans, while more convinced of the notion that Naruto himself wasn't a demon, weren't really willing to adopt him either. For one, it would be obvious he was adopted since he wouldn't have the clan's bloodline and thus be unable to use any of their techniques. They also feared the backlash their clan would receive if they adopted a Jinchuriki, though none of them said that aloud of course. Anzo was willing to raise the child and insisted on turning him into a human weapon like Han and Rashi, the 2 Jinchuriki from Iwar Killer Bee, the Jinchuriki from Kumo had been in the last war. However, the 3rd was heavily against this idea and insisted that Naruto would not be raised as an emotionless puppet. He was supported by many of the clan heads in this decision. The meeting was reaching a stalemate until suddenly a voice spoke up. Perhaps I can offer a solution. The room was instantly silenced and everyone looked around trying to find the source of the words until they noticed it was one of the Anbu that spoke up. This shocked them since the Anbu, though present at every meeting for security reasons, never once interfered. Most had even forgotten they were even there, since they usually stood at the side blending in with the shadows. The third looked at the Anbu that spoke up, a man wearing a mask with a dragon motive, and recognized him as Ryu, the new commander of the Anbu. The previous commander Phoenix alongside 4 of his 5 captains were assigned as one of the guardians of Kushina and were amongst the first to die by the QB's hands, and Ryu, the 5th captain and now the highest in rank, was named as the new commander despite his young age. "Very well, come forward and explain yourself," ordered the Hokage, wondering what the new Anbu commander had to say. "Yes, Lord Hokage." Ryu said while bowing politely and stepping forward. "I propose that Naruto Uzumaki will be placed in the Anbu headquarters, where he will be raised and supervised by the Anbu during his childhood." Ryu said, quickly coming to the point. "What?" The shock was clearly written on the face of everyone in the room, including the other Anbu who were now beginning to question the sanity of their new commander. "Allow me to explain my reasons," Ryu said without flinching. "I can assure you I did not propose this lightly. Please explain your reasons for this most unorthodox proposal," Shikaku Nara said, having deemed this whole meeting too troublesome after debating for 2 hours. "Of course," Ryu continued in his still calm voice. "The civilians demand that the Jinchuriki is put under heavy surveillance, do they not? To make sure the QB never escapes again." He asked this to the representative of the civilian council who answered with a quick yes. "Well then, what better place than the middle of Anbu headquarters? He will be surrounded at all times by dozens of highly classed ninjas who can interfere immediately should he start to lose control and are skilled enough to kill him if it ever becomes necessary. If the seal ever breaks, we can react immediately and stop the QB from attacking the village again." The civilian representative had nothing to say against that and only nodded his head towards the masked man. "Lord Danzo," he said next, turning towards the heavily bandaged council member, "you deem that Naruto should be trained in the way of the ninja so that he may become an asset to our village, correct?" The older man only nodded in response. "Well, since he will be trained by the Anbu, we can guarantee that he will receive the very best training a young ninja can hope for." Danzo scoffed at that idea. He was sure that his own root organization would be more suited to prepare the boy than the Anbu were, but since root officially didn't exist anymore, he couldn't bring that up in a council meeting. So he reluctantly agreed that the Anbu were the best this village had to offer. "And finally, Lord Hokage," he said while turning towards the 3rd Hokage, "we can assure you that Naruto will be protected by the very best of this village. No one will harm him during our watch, and he will be allowed to experience as normal a childhood as is possible for someone in his position. Does anyone have any objections to this proposal?" The 3rd asked to the people around the meeting room. "If not, then I decree that Naruto Uzumaki will now be placed under the care and protection of the Anbu. You are dismissed." The other members of the council left the room one by one until only the 3rd, Ryu and Naruto, still asleep, remained. "Ryu," the Hokage suddenly said, "why are you doing this?" "Sir? I already explained the logic behind my proposal," Ryu answered. "Yes, and you did a fine job of convincing the other members with it. But I sense there is another reason you're not telling me. So once again, why are you doing this?" Ryu remained silent for a while until he finally spoke up. "It is Kushina, sir." "Kushina Uzumaki?" The 3rd asked, starting to see where this was going. "I was her old teammate before she got married and retired." Ryu answered. "I couldn't just sit back while the council debated about killing her son. My apologies for lying to you and the council, sir." "No, it's alright." Sarutobi let out a small smile while he said this. "To be honest, I'm starting to see more and more merit to the idea. I'll give you a week to make the preparations and then I'll leave Naruto in your care." "Yes, Lord Hokage, I will begin immediately," Ryu said as he bowed and returned to the Anbu headquarters. "So it's babysitting?" asked Salamander, one of the newly appointed captains of Anbu. "We are tasked with taking care of the new Jinchuriki of the 9 tails and to guarantee his safety as well as make sure the seal will hold," Ryu explained. "But this Naruto, he is still a baby, right? He is a newborn, yes, and we have to feed him, change his diapers, make sure he sleeps and watch over him at night. That is how one generally takes care of a baby," Ryu said. "So it's babysitting?" Salamander asked again. "Yes," Ryu let out a sigh as he surrendered the point. "During the first 5 years of his life we will for all intents and purposes be nothing more than babysitters. Afterwards we are responsible for his training until he graduates and becomes a genin." "Why are we responsible?" "Just let the academy handle him, Hawk," another newly appointed captain said. "Don't be ridiculous. You know damn well that without specialized training at home, it is near impossible to pass the academy by yourself. The low number of successful civilian ninjas is all the proof you need. There is a reason that 80% of our forces come from established clans, even though the clans are only 10% of our population," Ryu said. "Besides, it is crucial to the safety of the village that Naruto learns how to handle all the extra energy the QB will give him. His chakra network is already as big as that of a 3-year-old, and you just can't learn that level of control in the academy. I still don't like it, Salamander said. I didn't join the Anbu so I could do goddamn babysitting missions again. This is a D-rank mission for crying out loud, let the genin handle it. It also an order from both the Hokage and the council, so you will do what you are told. Ryu said, making it clear he didn't want to discuss it any further. Besides, it might be a D rank in nature, but we are getting full-time A rank pay for it, so stop complaining. We can use the extra funds. So how will we do this then? Asked Deer, one of the 2 female captains alongside Crab. We can't exactly let a baby sleep in the barracks, can we? Officially the Hokage gave him apartment 101 of the iceberg, which means that as far as official channels are involved, Naruto will be living by himself. Ryu said. And since he will be a tenant of the iceberg, he is of course allowed to use its public facilities including the library, training rooms, blacksmith and lounge. The barracks themselves and the meeting rooms are off limits however, since those officially don't exist unless you actually join Anbu. So he will stay in the iceberg, but he won't actually join Anbu? Dira asked. Of course not. He's a baby, for crying out loud. In what universe does having a child join Anbu make any sense? He won't just magically become Jonin level because we train him for a while. Ryu said, while starting to lose his patience with his new captains and their stupid questions. Everyone thought about that for a bit. The iceberg was the unofficial nickname of the headquarters of the Anbu forces, named because over 2/3 of its content was hidden below the surface. Officially it was just a regular apartment complex owned by the village and overseen by the current Hokage. Unofficially however it housed the living quarters of the Anbu force alongside plenty of training areas and other facilities, most of which were hidden below the surface. Never before had an outsider seen the true inside of the iceberg, let alone been given a permanent room there. To say they were shocked at the news of their new neighbor would be an understatement. Anyway, as for the schedule. Each team will be responsible for Naruto for 1 week before the next team takes over. The order will be Team Salamander, Team Hawk, Team Wolf, Team Deer and Team Crab. Afterward Salamander's turn begins again. Since Naruto won't actually arrive for another week, Salamander's first task is to make sure apartment 101 is prepared. Any questions? Ryu gave everyone their orders, and his 5 captains left the room to inform their team of the new mission they were assigned. 1 week later the Hokage entered the iceberg with a sleeping baby in his arms to take him to his new home. He hoped he made the right decision for Naruto's future. After they left, 2 members of Team Hawk entered the room and started their first watch. Little did they know that the Anbu would never be the same again for years to come. It wasn't until a few weeks after the attack that it became apparent that things would never be the same again in the village of Konoha. At first everyone was still too shaken up and didn't quite realize how big the damage really was. But after the initial state of shock subsided, they began to see the things they once took for granted were now changed forever. This was especially true for the Anbu. Not only did their entire chain of command changed almost overnight, they also had to deal with a new neighbor in their headquarters. This neighbor was Naruto Uzumaki, the village's newest Jinchuriki. Since both his parents died in the attack, the orphan boy was placed under the protection and care of the Anbu. However, many Anbu soon found out that taking care of a baby was a whole lot different from their regular line of work. Especially since Naruto seemed to have a near infinite appetite and refused to sleep during the night hours, opting instead to cry for more food. This drove many of the otherwise highly trained and skilled ninja up the wall, and many swore to never have kids of their own after their first shift ended. But eventually things settled down, and soon the Anbu grew accustomed to Naruto's presence in the iceberg. They even managed to work out a workable schedule where a few volunteers, mostly Kunoichi, though one silver-haired Anbu and a dog mask volunteered as well, took after him most of the time. It was agreed that the Anbu who took care of Naruto were allowed to remove their masks during that time and be themselves when they were with the blonde. There were 3 reasons for this. First of all, Naruto was frightened by the masks, and it was a lot easier to get him calm if they simply removed them. Secondly, an Anbu walking around town with a baby caught a lot of unwanted attention from potential enemy spies. And finally, the Anbu themselves liked being normal people for a few hours before going back to their alter ego as faceless soldiers. The third Hokage also dropped by for a few hours whenever he was there for Anbu business, which happened almost every day, even when most of the time he never even made it to Ryu's office to discuss the things he was supposed to be there for in the first place. Everyone knew better than to comment on this though. The Anbu however had to stay sharp at all times since the rest of the village did not share their views on the boy. During the first 6 months alone there were 6 assassination attempts at young Naruto's life. They tried to poison his food on 5 separate occasions, and one man was even foolish enough to try to sneak in at night and kill him in his sleep. Tried being the word here since he didn't get very far before the Anbu noticed a civilian sneaking in their own headquarters. These attempts at Naruto's life stopped rather abruptly once the Anbu executed the would-be assassins in public under charges of treason. After this rough start, the next few years went by rather smoothly, and Naruto grew quite accustomed to the presence of the Anbu in his flat. His room also changed quite a lot since the first year and now housed a small bed with orange sheets. Somehow he slept a lot easier with that color than others, a desk with several storybooks about ninjas, a closet with his clothes and a small chest with his toys and birthday gifts from the Hokage and the Anbu, who long since stopped seeing Naruto as just a mission and more as part of their family. Especially Kakashi, the Anbu known as Dog, took a liking to the blonde and looked after him a lot more than the rest. It was on one of these days that Kakashi took care of Naruto. "How is he doing?" asked Kakashi to Badger once he entered flat 101 to begin his shift. "He's asleep now," grumbled Badger, but he was quite a handful to get into bed. "Apparently you promised to take him to the park today." The kid couldn't stop talking about it. Sorry about that," said Kakashi while rubbing the back of his head with his left hand. "I hope he wasn't too difficult." "Nothing I can't handle," said Badger with a smirk. "You on the other hand are about to have quite an eventful day once he wakes up. I hope you aren't too tired from your last mission to the land of tea, because you will need all the energy you can spare," Badger said while chuckling. "You didn't?" asked Kakashi with fear in his tone. "Didn't what?" asked Badger trying to sound innocent and suppressing the smirk that threatened to cover his entire face. "I just promised you'd play ninja with him, that's all." He quickly stood up and ran past Kakashi towards the door. "Have a nice day," he said on the way out while Kakashi cursed his bad karma. Playing ninja was Naruto's favorite game, and since a short while it was also the initiation ritual the Anbu gave to the new recruits. The basic idea of the game was to give young children some basic form of training, disguised as a series of games, and to keep it up as long as the child remained interested. It was designed in such a way that the older ninja playing with the child had quite a hard workout themselves, that way they could keep up with their own training as well. It was very popular amongst the clans, and many ninja, especially those who had younger brothers or nephews, first frowned at the seemingly easy task of entertaining a kid for an hour or two. The catch, however, was that unlike other children who stopped playing after 1 or 2 hours, Naruto simply did not grow tired of the game and kept demanding more. And thanks to his unwanted tenant giving him extra stamina and energy, the game could easily last 8 to 9 hours before he wanted to stop for some ramen. Many rookies were left broken after the first day of playing ninja with the hyperactive blonde, not even able to lift a finger, and a few even quit Anbu altogether, saying they couldn't take it. Kakashi sighed and silently cursed once again at Badger's idea of a joke. "Oh well, better get started then," he thought to himself and went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast for the two of them. "Breakfast is ready," he shouted towards Naruto's room, and a few seconds later the blonde boy came running towards the kitchen wearing black pajamas with a leaf symbol stitched in white on the back. "Good morning, Kakashi," Naruto said to his favorite guardian. "Are we going to the park today and play ninja again?" he asked hopefully. "Sure, Naruto," Kakashi replied. "We'll go right after breakfast, so eat up." Kakashi then followed his own advice and ate his breakfast because he had a feeling he'd be needing all the energy he could get. After breakfast, Naruto got dressed and he and Kakashi went to the park at the edge of the village to spend the day. Because it was a warm summer day, the park was crowded with several families, mostly civilian, though there were several of the smaller clans as well, who also gathered to enjoy the nice day. Naruto and Kakashi found a nice spot under a tree that wasn't yet taken, and soon the little blonde ran off to play with the other kids. Kakashi was secretly relieved by this since it meant that Naruto would at least give him some time to relax before he insisted they began the torture session, as the game was sometimes called in Anbu circles. Smiling at his good fortune, he started reading a book of a new series called Icha Icha that just came out and wondered if it would be any good. He only bought it because Jiraiya had written it after all. Meanwhile, Naruto reached the playground in the center of the park and started playing with the other children. Several of the parents tensed a little at first and kept a close eye on him, but the presence of the Anbu kept them at bay, so nobody interfered or dared yell insults at Naruto. And after a few minutes of nothing happening, even they started to relax a little and decided to let the kids play their games instead of worrying. Meanwhile, Naruto was playing a game of hide and seek and was frantically searching for a good hiding spot while one of the other kids, a boy his age with brown hair and a dog, was counting to 100. "Maybe behind the vendors," he thought to himself. "No, that's too obvious." Dottie looked around the park some more looking for a good spot until his eyes fell on some bushes and trees at the end of the park. "Perfect," he thought to himself and ran up to his new hiding spot. Eventually Naruto found a decent spot in a tree and tried to stay hidden as good as he could. "He'll never find me here," he thought to himself and tried to stay silent since he learned from the Anbu that making sound is the easiest way to give away your location, no matter how good you are hidden. After a few minutes he suddenly heard some commotion behind him and he carefully looked down from his hiding spot. There he saw three young boys around his age surround a small girl with pupilless lavender eyes and short indigo hair who was being pushed around by them. Bullies. He thought, I better help that girl out. He carefully moved to the other side of the tree so he could surprise them from above, another trick he picked up from one of the ninja games, and kept listening to the conversation below. Look at those freaky eyes. The biggest of the boys said, she must be a Hyuga. I bet she is just as arrogant as that Niji guy, his friend said, all Hyugas are the same. Rich girl here probably thinks she is better than us, huh? Said the biggest kid, I bet she thinks we are beneath her. He pushed the girl on her knees and laughed when she started crying. No. I do not think that the girl on the ground said quietly while sobbing, please. Just leave me alone. What was that? Leave you alone? The third guy said, are we not worthy enough to be around a mighty Hyuga? It's not like that. That's not what I meant. Tried the girl on the ground. Yeah right. I think the lying bitch needs a lesson. The big kid stepped forward and prepared to slap the defenseless girl on the ground. Suddenly he cried out as he felt a stab of pain coming from his nose and there was blood trickling down his face. What was that? He yelled. He noticed a pine cone at his feet and looked up. There he saw a blonde kid with blue eyes looking straight at him from one of the trees with another pine cone in his hands. Who are you? Asked the biggest kid while keeping one hand over his now bleeding nose. I am Naruto Uzumaki and I am here to kick some ass, yelled Naruto while dropping down from the tree and throwing the second pine cone at the bully's face. Now let the girl go, you bastards. Boss, are you okay? Asked one of the other kids. I'm fine, he just caught me by surprise, that's all. Now go teach that wannabe hero a lesson. The two kids seemed to regain their confidence and ran at Naruto ready to beat him up. Be careful. Yelled the girl on the ground, who managed to regain her footing now that the two bullies no longer had her pinned down. Meanwhile the first of the two kids reached Naruto and was about to hit him with a wild punch. Naruto meanwhile remembered the taijutsu lessons Kakashi taught him the last few weeks. Always keep a cool head in battle and anticipate your opponent's actions. Naruto remembered Kakashi's words and sidestepped the wild attack so that he was now positioned behind the bully. Strike hard and decisive. Naruto kicked at the bully's legs from behind and watched him crash to the ground. Always mind your surroundings. He quickly spun around and just barely managed to block a punch from the second bully that was behind the first one. Use your opponent's strength against themselves. He quickly grabbed the fist that tried punching him and using the bully's momentum, threw him around right into his friend, knocking both of them out at once. Keep your eye on the mission at all times. He turned around again to look at the girl and came face to face with the biggest bully who was glaring at him. If the opponent is on the defensive, keep the pressure on and don't give them a chance to recover. Naruto ran towards the biggest kid and tried to take him down with a combination of punches and kicks he practiced earlier. Unfortunately the third bully was stronger than his friends and, though he lacked style, managed to overpower Naruto with brute force alone and threw him on the ground with a nasty punch in the stomach. Damn, I forgot the lesson about not being overconfident. Naruto muttered to himself. He saw the bigger kid move towards him with an evil grin on his face. You're going to get it now, runt. It's payback time for breaking my nose. Naruto gulped and tried to find a way out of his predicament until he saw the girl stand up behind the bully with new confidence in her eyes. Leave him alone. She said without stuttering like she did before. Oh yeah? And what are you going to do about it, huh? The bully asked mockingly without even looking at her, a mistake which would cost him dearly. I said. Leave him alone. Suddenly the veins around her pupilless eyes became visible as she lowered her body in a taijutsu stance Naruto had never seen before. 8 trigrams. 16 palms. The girl shouted while moving gracefully, almost like a dancer, towards the bully's exposed backside. She moved her hands in a blurry and struck his back repeatedly on various parts. Naruto frowned at the attack. He could tell those hits weren't exactly strong, more like gentle tabs really, and he knew from first-hand experience that the bully could take much stronger punches and remain standing. Imagine his surprise when instead of shrugging the attack off like he expected, the bully's eyes became glassy and he fell forwards with a loud thud. He saw the bigger kid was unconscious. How the hell did she do that? He thought. Thank you for helping me, he heard the girl say and turned his head towards her. Her veins had returned to normal though her eyes were still pupilless. Naruto gave her a wide grin. I should be the one thanking you. How did you take out that bully? That was amazing. You must be really strong. He said excitedly. The girl blushed heavily at the words of praise but managed to let out a small thank you. So what's your name anyway? Naruto asked. I am Naruto. Nice to meet you, Naruto. I am Hinata Hyuga. The girl replied. Nice to meet you too, Hinata, Naruto said with his trademark grin. Hey, me and the other kids are playing games in the park now. Would you like to join us? He stretched his hand out towards her, awaiting her reply. He's asking me to play with him. Maybe he wants to be friends. Hinata thought excitedly to herself. She didn't have many friends and smiled at the idea of playing with other kids, so she took his hand. "Yes, I'd like that," she said. They both ran back to the other kids, not realizing two figures were watching them. "She is quite impressive for her age. Her father must be proud," Kakashi said to Ko Hyuga, Hinata's guardian. "To be honest, I am as surprised as you are," Ko replied. "She doesn't usually show this much confidence. In fact, it was the first time she managed to pull off the 16 palms attack. The first time in a combat situation, and she already hit all targets. She must have trained that technique a lot then," Kakashi said. "No, I mean literally the first time she ever did it. She has never been able to do it successfully before, not even in training." Ko confessed, "I wonder if it was that kid who somehow inspired her to do it. The first time she pulls it off and immediately in a combat scenario." Kakashi pondered, "That certainly is quite peculiar, though not unheard of. Apparently Naruto must have left quite the impression on her to inspire such a change of personality. Talking about Naruto, he didn't do too bad himself," Ko complimented. "He took the first two down by himself and did quite a number on the third one as well. If the kid wasn't a head bigger than him, he would have won. That's quite impressive for a kid his age." "Which clan does he belong to?" "He doesn't belong to a clan," Kakashi answered. "He is being raised by the Anbu." "Oh, I see," Ko replied with a visible shock on his face. "He is that Naruto, huh?" "Yes, he is that Naruto," Kakashi said quite defensively. "Is that a problem?" "Not at all, I was just surprised to see him like this," Ko answered. "After all, he has quite the reputation." "Nothing but rumors and superstition," Kakashi firmly said. "I watched over Naruto his entire life and there is nothing at all wrong with him. He is just a normal kid." "Well, he did came to Lady Hinata's help even when he obviously didn't know who she was. Nor did he treated her differently when he did know." Ko pondered, "Most people wouldn't have jumped into a fight like that. Perhaps I can convince her father to let Hinata play with Naruto more often, after all she does seem to take a liking to the boy." He chuckled while pointing at the two kids who were still playing with each other. Kakashi couldn't help but smile underneath his mask at the sight. After all, this was the first time Naruto had a friend his own age. Other kids played with him when they visited the park, and some, like that Inyazuka brat, seemed to genuinely like him. But in the end he never had someone he could truly call a friend. At least not within his own age group. He really hoped Hinata and Naruto could become friends, at the very least it would hopefully calm him down a bit. After watching them play for another few hours, it was time to go back home. Ko and Kakashi picked them up and after saying goodbye to each other, Naruto and Hinata quickly followed their respective guardian. Later that night at the Hyuga mansion. "Are you sure that's what happened?" Hiashi Hyuga, head of the Hyuga clan and father of Hinata, asked. "Yes sir," Ko replied. "Hinata managed to subdue her assailant with the 16 palms technique. I should also mention that he was 2 years older than her and at least a head bigger." "And you say that Naruto Uzumaki was there as well? Was he one of her attackers?" "No sir, Naruto did not harass Lady Hinata. In fact, he went to help her when he accidentally stumbled upon the scene. He took out 2 other kids that were there as well." "He did he? Interesting. I wonder what the Anbu are doing to that kid. He'll definitely be someone to watch out for later," he chuckled. "But back to my daughter, yesterday you said Hinata couldn't do the technique and insisted she needed more time, yet now you say she successfully implemented it in a combat situation. How do you explain this sudden growth?" "Permission to speak freely, sir?" Ko hesitantly asked, knowing he was about to touch a delicate topic. "Permission granted," Hiashi said while raising his eyebrow. "As her personal teacher, I must say that Hinata definitely has all the talent and skill needed to become a great kunoichi. Her chakra control is excellent and thanks to her agility and flexibility, she is perfect for the gentle fist style." Ko started. "However, certain aspects of her personality are holding her back." "What do you mean?" Hashi asked. "As you know, she is quite gentle and rather shy," Ko carefully understated, "therefore the traditional training methods aren't really suited for her. She isn't the type that responds well to harsh criticism or direct competition. And some of the elders' efforts to encourage her have had the opposite effect, I'm afraid." "Well, what do you suggest then?" Hiashi asked. "If she doesn't master the training, she will automatically be put in the branch house, you know that." "I think I have an idea that would greatly help Lady Hinata, though it is rather unorthodox." Ko carefully picked his words. "You can tell me." Hiashi simply stated, not showing anything in his facial expression. "The day I observed that Naruto had a rather positive effect on her confidence, apparently his rather outgoing personality and his actions in trying to help her inspired Lady Hinata to pull the 16 palms technique when he needed help in turn." His guardian, the Anbu captain Kakashi, said that Hinata had a similar effect on Naruto and proposed to let them meet more often. Ko stated, perhaps letting them train together would help Lady Hinata overcome her shyness. If not, getting trained by the Anbu has never hurt anyone. This can only improve her technique. She also looks like she really could use a friend, it's not like she has any. Even within the branch house most won't approach her co-taught, though never stated out loud. You're right, Hiashi said, it is rather unorthodox. The elders won't like it, that's for sure. I understand sir, please forgive me for bothering you. He nodded and turned to leave. Then again, Hiashi continued as if Ko never said anything, they don't like her current progress either. There have been voices of dropping her from the training already. Truth be told I was about to ask the Jonin Kurenai to take over her training, but maybe the Anbu are a better idea. Perhaps we should give your idea a fair chance, if you are correct, then the end result will surely be worth a small breach of protocol. I'll convince the elders and talk to the Hokage, let's see if this Naruto can really help Hinata get over her shyness. Thank you sir. Ko bowed politely and left the room. Once on the hallway he allowed a small smile to appear on his face, but quickly suppressed it, Hyugas were trained to hide their emotions after all. A few days later, Anbu headquarters training area 27. Naruto and Kakashi were busy going over the basic taijutsu exercises again when the Hokage cleared his throat to make his presence known. Hey old man, did you came to visit me? Naruto yelled while hugging the Hokage. Hello, Naruto-kun. How is your training going? The Hokage asked while returning Naruto's hug. He is making steady progress Lord Hokage, Kakashi answered in Naruto's place, his taijutsu is pretty good and he is making great progress in throwing shurikens and kunai as well. He can hit stationary targets with 90% accuracy and moving targets with 40%. But I expect those numbers to go up quite a lot by the time he starts the academy. I'm glad to see you are taking your training seriously, the Hokage said. Of course, I'll be the next Hokage after all. Naruto said confidently. Will you now? My, you sure aim high. But let's not get ahead of ourselves, shall we? Being Hokage is serious business after all. The Hokage chuckled at Naruto's enthusiasm. Anyway, I have an announcement to make. The Hokage said suddenly all serious. I'm afraid Naruto that you will no longer be able to train one-on-one with Kakashi. What? Why? Naruto shouted with a shock on his face. Sir? Kakashi asked, I don't mind training Naruto, there is no need to stop the sessions on my behalf. Now, not so fast you two. The Hokage said with a small smile, remember that a good shinobi looks underneath the underneath. I never said you had to stop training now did I? Naruto said. Because it seemed to him that was exactly what he said. I see, Kakashi stated, you said our one-on-one training sessions would end, that would imply someone else will be joining us. Now since having two teachers at the same time makes no sense I would have to say you want me to train someone alongside Naruto. Indeed the Hokage confirmed, in fact why don't you two meet her right now? She is waiting just outside with her father. As if on cue Hiashi Hyuga entered the training area with Hinata in tow. The little girl was wondering what they were doing here and why she needed to bring her training outfit with her. If father wants to do a training session, why can't we do it at home like usual? When Naruto spotted Hinata he immediately yelled out to her, hey Hinata, are you my new training partner? That's so cool. Training partner? Hinata taught, this can't be right, father would never let me train outside the clan. But why am I here then? So Naruto, is it? Hiashi said as if he didn't hear the loud shout, I heard you helped my daughter out the other day. Why don't you tell me some more about that? Kakashi frowned, he realized Hiashi technically never agreed to the training yet and that he was giving Naruto a character test first before making a decision. Because although he was a strict parent he did care for his daughter and he wanted to be sure she was in good hands. He expected that he would receive a similar test later, though his would be less secretive, it's a lot harder to fool a jonin than it is a child after all. Naruto on the other hand saw no harm in this and started talking about their day in the park. Kakashi noted with some amusement that his version of the facts was pretty different than how he remembered it. Naruto said that Hinata was fighting 3 kids at once rather than being bullied by them and that he helped her with the first 2 instead of knocking them out single-handedly. Then the third guy cheated and knocked me down when I wasn't looking instead of him being an idiot who ran head first in his fists. He finished with Hinata defeated him by herself with some really cool attack that totally knocked him out. Well at least that part was sort of correct. Kakashi waited for Naruto to finish up and was surprised when he kept talking. He spent another 10 minutes describing all the games they played later that day in far more detail than the actual fight Hiashi wanted to know about. In the end though Hiashi just smiled to himself, it was obvious that Naruto and his daughter got along great and if anyone would be able to get her out of her shell, it would be him. His face however didn't betray his feelings and it kept its neutral look throughout the entire story. So Naruto, he suddenly said, I take it you will be starting at the academy next year as well. Yes sir. Naruto confirmed. Well then, I feel it would be in both your interests if you and Hinata could work together to practice and do your homework. Wouldn't you agree? He asked, already knowing the answer. You mean I can train with Hinata after school? That's so awesome. Naruto almost yelled. Awesome huh? Hiashi taught, I better make sure he keeps focused on training only, don't want to give the kid ideas about my daughter. That is of course if you can keep up, Hiashi said, only the best training partner is good enough for Hinata. And now to really drive the point home he almost smirked. Maybe I should ask the Uchiha kid instead, he'll probably be Rookie of the Year Hiashi pretended to ponder aloud. Hell no. Naruto said, I'm gonna be Rookie of the Year, you'll see. Will you now? Well then you better focus on training a lot because if you turn out to be a failure, I'll put a stop to these sessions at once, do you understand? Hiashi said with a stern gaze, he loved to play with people's minds like that. Naruto gulped and nodded. He was determined not to lose his new training partner and he vowed to become Rookie of the Year. And so Naruto and Hinata started training together. Hinata's insecurity and shyness that always kept her back quickly disappeared under Naruto's constant praise and Kakashi's rather lax training attitude. He allowed them to fail tasks and simply let them try again until they got it right. This was in dire contrast with the Hyuga's method of demanding absolute perfection and turning everything into a competition with winners and losers that never managed to appeal to Hinata's character. Naruto started taking his training more seriously as well. Now that he had a partner who was used to discipline and harsh work, he could no longer afford to goof around or pull pranks on his teachers. At least not as much as he used to. He did manage to get both himself and Hinata involved in several pranks that ran out of hand and ended in a stern talking to for both of them. Eventually the months passed and it was time to enter the regular academy. Hiashi's warning was clearly on Naruto's mind, he had to be the very best or else Hinata and him could no longer train together. He took a deep breath and they both walked into their new classroom ready for the biggest adventure of their young life. Naruto and Hinata entered the room of their new class and looked around. The room was already filled with several kids Naruto had seen in the park or on the streets from time to time. Most of them were from civilian families, but he also recognized several clan children by their clan's characteristics. A kid with facial markings who brings a little puppy to class. Must be an Inyazuka. A chubby kid who eats potato chips in class. Akimichi. Next to him a dark-haired kid who is sleeping. Inara. Then the girl with a blonde ponytail who sits next to them must be a Yamanaka. He reasoned. He also recognized an Abiram. Hinata was a little freaked out about the insects, Naruto didn't particularly care. Hey Naruto-kun, you're here as well. A familiar voice suddenly said behind him. He looked back and saw Itachi Uchiha, one of the Anbu who looked after him from time to time, standing there alongside a smaller version of himself. You know who this is, brother? Sasuke asked Itachi. Ah yes, let me introduce you to, Itachi said. Naruto, this is Sasuke, my little brother. Sasuke, meet Naruto, the boy I told you about who lives with the Anbu. And you must be Hinata Hyuga I assume. Yes, I am Hinata, nice to meet you Itachi-san, Sasuke-kun. Hinata replied. Sasuke however wasn't paying attention to her and instead looked at Naruto. So this is the Anbu kid huh? He taught. He heard a lot of stories about him. Some people like his parents and several civilians said he was trouble and that he should stay away, while others like his brother Itachi said he was just a regular kid and even encouraged them to be friends. Seeing him in person he was a little disappointed. By now he expected Naruto to be some sort of mythical figure if all the stories he heard were even remotely true, but it looked like he was a normal kid after all. Naruto, Hinata. He nodded politely, he was still an Uchiha after all, and he had to hold up the reputation of his clan. Meanwhile Itachi had already left without saying a word, he was a busy ninja after all, and he also knew better than to embarrass his baby brother with too much open affection. Uchihas were a clan of warriors, not a clan that needs someone holding their hand on the first day of school. Alright everyone. A voice suddenly shouted. Pick a seat and sit down. Naruto looked to the front of the class and saw a young man in a Chunin flak vest and a scar across his face. Next to him was another man with white hair, also with a flak vest. I am Iruka the scarred teacher introduced himself, and this is my assistant Mizuki. From this day till the day you graduate we will be your teachers. But make no mistake. This is not the civilian school, this is the ninja academy. All those who are here came here with the sole purpose of becoming a ninja for Konoha. Some of you will succeed and become the next legends of our village, he continued his speech, but most of you will either drop out or end up killed within your first year. Most of the class, especially the kids from civilian origin, gulped at that last statement and looked around nervously. The people from clans however seemed perfectly at ease hearing about getting killed, and Naruto, who sat down next to Hinata and Sasuke, didn't flinch either. Anyway, Mizuki said next before we worry about that we shall go outside to the training course to see where everybody stands. Don't worry though. This first session will not count for your report card. He assured them. Nonetheless it is a good way to see where you need improvement, so do take it seriously. Iruka looked sternly at Shikamaru who was dozing off in class as he said it. Once outside everyone stood around the throwing range where Iruka explained the first exercise. It was a simple accuracy test where you threw 5 kunai and 5 shuriken dull ones to make sure nobody caused accidents at a series of targets 20 meters away. You scored points the closer you got to the center of each for a maximum of 100 points if you landed 10 bull's eyes. One by one Iruka called each name and that person got forward to throw their weapons at the targets. It was obvious there was already a huge difference between those who had previous experience with throwing weapons and those who didn't. The average civilian scored a low 30 points at best, the kids who came from clans on the other hand did better, with an average score of 70. Hinata even scored 90, firmly placing herself as the best female and even in the top 3 in general. Finally only Sasuke and Naruto remained. Sasuke Uchiha Iruka called amongst a loud murmur when they heard his name. Everyone heard of the legendary Uchiha clan and now they got to see one of them in action. Sasuke confidently went forwards and took the weapons, he weighted them in his hands and threw them one by one at the targets like he had done countless times before. 99 points. Iruka said in disbelief, that was the score you expected on a final exam after months of training, not on the first day of school. Everybody looked at Sasuke in awe and several of the girls started talking very excited amongst themselves while looking at him with little hearts in their eyes. Not too bad, Naruto said casually as Sasuke walked back to where he and Hinata were waiting, but you missed one. That one kunai must be slightly off balance, then he remarked. Naruto Uzumaki, you're up. Iruka said. Naruto casually walked to the range and picked up the kunai and shuriken, as he got ready for the exercise he noticed that nobody was really paying attention to him. Everybody was still hanging around Sasuke. Good luck Naruto-kun. Hinata, who was the only one looking at Naruto, said. Naruto smiled at her and focused on the exercise. He quickly threw his shuriken and 4 of his 5 kunai at the targets. Everyone spun their heads around when they heard 9 consecutive thuds and looked in shock at the 9 bull's eyes. Naruto was about to throw his last kunai as well when he stopped at the last second, smirked a little, and then threw it anyway, aiming slightly left of his last target where it impacted the board with a thud. Everyone just looked in shock at what they just saw. Well, looks like you were right Sasuke-kun, Naruto casually remarked, that kunai was slightly off balance. Thanks for the heads up. He smiled at the young Uchiha. No problem, Sasuke recovered himself, I had to let you win at least one trial right. 100 points. Well done Naruto Iruka managed to say after having recovered from what he just saw. 2 geniuses in one class. This is going to be interesting. He taught. After the targeting exercise they continued towards an obstacle course they had to cross in less than 5 minutes. This time the civilian kids did even worse. Only 6 out of 45 managed to complete it and even then it took them almost 4 minutes on average. The clan children once again did better and all managed to pass it. Naruto noticed however that the best ones were different kids than in the previous exercise. Shikamaru, who scored an impressive 92 in accuracy, couldn't really be bothered to go all out. He called it troublesome and completed the course at a leisurely pace, finishing after 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Tiba on the other hand scored pretty low at targeting, a mere 63, but excelled at the more physical test, finishing it in 1 minute and 10 seconds. The rest of them all finished somewhere within that time frame, even Choji who was pretty big-boned as he called it did really well and finished it in 2 minutes. Hinata once again scored really high, she demonstrated a high level of agility and never missed a single step. In the end however she missed some of the raw speed and power Kiba had and completed it in only 1 minute and 15 seconds. This still placed her safely above Ino's 2 minutes as the best female however. Once again only Naruto and Sasuke remained, somehow they suspected Iruka did it on purpose to not discourage the others too much. Why don't you go first this time, Sasuke offered with a mischievous glint in his eyes. Thanks. Naruto smiled. No problem. Sasuke smirked a little, after all a gentleman always lets the ladies go first. Everyone sniffled at the joke and even Hinata couldn't fully suppress a small smile on her face. Naruto, who could always appreciate a good joke even if he was on the receiving end, had to admit he walked right into that one and focused on the obstacle course instead. There were 5 obstacles they had to cross. First was a wall of 5 meters with ropes they had to climb over, then a balancing beam suspended over water, a series of ropes they had to swing from, a wooden construct without ropes this time, and finally they had to crawl under a series of wires to the finish line without disturbing any of the bells that hang on them. Naruto was determined to win this round as well and quickly went over, through and under each obstacle at record speed. He wasn't as gracious as Hinata had been and had in fact fallen down once. But in the end he made up for it in raw speed and finished at 1 minute and 3 seconds. Sasuke however noticed the part where Naruto had fallen and during his turn made sure to be extra careful when crossing that slippery part of the course. This carefulness paid off since without wasting precious seconds like Naruto, he could go on immediately and finished in 59 seconds. Both of them scored really high again, it looks like it's more than a fluke Iruka taught in disbelief. Very well, let's go to the final test for today, he said, while keeping his face straight from the internal shock he was feeling. The last test was a small taijutsu tournament between everyone. To make things fair and balanced, the brackets were divided based on the previous results, rather than at random. As such, Naruto, Sasuke and Hinata ended up in different brackets and wouldn't meet each other until the semi-final at best. The first few rounds of the tournament were pretty one-sided for our three heroes. Naruto and Sasuke went through the civilian kids like a knife through butter, and Hinata, who was physically weaker than most of them, relied on her agility and her superior fighting style to reach the semi-finals as well. Eventually only 4 people remained. Naruto, Sasuke, Hinata and Choji, who surprised everyone by beating Kiba in the prior round. "Alright everyone," Iruka said to the group, who was now equally divided in fans of Naruto and fans of Sasuke. "The matchups from here on out will be randomly decided," he declared while running his hand blindly through a box and pulled out a card. "The first contestant is Naruto and his opponent is." The hand went back in the box and pulled out a second card, Sasuke. "This means that Hinata vs Choji will be the other semi-final, and the winner of both matches will meet in the final, understood?" "Okay, first match begin," he shouted the last part. Sasuke and Naruto were circling each other carefully and waited for the other to make the first move. Finally, Naruto was the first to get bored and suddenly rushed ahead to launch the first attack. Sasuke quickly reacted and dodged a first blow by rolling out the way. He then spun around and started counter-attacking. Meanwhile, Naruto had steadied himself from his own missed attack and managed to block Sasuke's punch with his forearms. Sasuke kept up the pressure and continued to try and hit him with a flurry of kicks and punches. Naruto managed to block or dodge most of them, but some still got through, and he soon started sporting some bruises from the impacts. Naruto realized that if this kept up he would have to give up eventually, so he decided to start his counter-attack. He waited for an opening, and when Sasuke's left side was open after throwing a punch, Naruto took his chance and landed a few hard hits on his exposed side. Sasuke jumped back to stop being hit and readied himself for another assault, biting through the pain from the hits. Meanwhile, Naruto prepared himself as well, and both boys ran towards each other at the same time, their fist extended to hit the other with everything they got. They reached each other in the middle, and both landed their right fist on the other's face. For a moment everything stood still and the audience, who was cheering them on until now, held their breath. Then the world went dark for them and they both collapsed on the ground. "P. Naruto heard a small voice through his headache. "Wake up." The voice became louder. "Hey, wake up you two." Iruka's voice was clear now, and Naruto opened one eye to see the outline of his teacher in his vision. He grunted and opened his other eye as well while looking around the area. Next to him, Sasuke slowly got up as well, grabbing his head and cursing under his breath. "What happened?" Naruto asked. "You and Sasuke were fighting in the tournament and you got knocked out," Iruka casually answered. "Oh right, the fight." Naruto suddenly remembered, "So who won?" "I did," Hinata said with a smile. "What?" Naruto and Sasuke asked in unison. "Well," Iruka said, "you both got knocked out at the same time, so neither of you could go on. And Hinata won her match, so she was the only one left and won the final by default." "Oh." They both said, rather disappointed that their unofficial competition ended in a tie. "Anyway," Iruka continued, "now that the first test is over we are done for today. You three can go home now and I'll expect you tomorrow at 8:30 in class." For the next few months Naruto and Sasuke continuously tried to surpass the other and soon became the 2 best students of their class. Hinata still trained with Naruto and various Anbu, and her skills, but mostly her self-confidence, kept increasing at an amazing pace. Soon she found herself as the best kunoichi of her class, not that there was much competition for that title, and even started catching up to Naruto and Sasuke as a close third overall. Despite their bitter and often merciless rivalry during any sort of test, competition, trial or spar, the 3 of them actually became quite good friends. They often hung out together and helped each other when someone had difficulty with a certain subject. As the end of their first year at the academy approached, their rivalry to become the number 1 student went higher than ever, each with their own reasons why they couldn't lose. Finally, the time came when Iruka called out their final scores. Already their class had sunk from an original 60 students to a mere 30. Only the clan children and the best of the civilian ones remained, while the others dropped out and transferred to the regular school because they couldn't handle the demanding schedule the academy demanded. Sasuke, Naruto and Hinata sat at their usual spots waiting patiently for Iruka and Mizuki to call out their scores. "Let's start with the girls, shall we?" Mizuki said, holding the list with all their scores in his hand. Third place for the girls with 85 points is Ino Yamanaka, everyone applauded politely. Second place with 89 points is Sakura Haruno. He continued. And the kunoichi of the year with 96 points is Hinata Hyuga. Everyone applauded the 3 girls, though no one seemed too surprised at the outcome. Hinata's victory was pretty much assured from the beginning. They were much more interested in Naruto's and Sasuke's competition for first place of the boys. Now onto the boys. Iruka said. On the third place with 93 points is Shino Aburam. Everyone once again applauded politely and then held their breath for the big reveal, who would win? Naruto or Sasuke? Second place. Iruka began while looking at the scores. Huh, that's weird. Mizuki, are these numbers accurate? He suddenly asked his assistant. Yes, all the scores are accurate. Mizuki simply stated. I see. Iruka said while looking at the paper in his hand. Oh come on. Kiba suddenly shouted, don't keep us in suspense like that. Just tell us who won already, I have a bet to win. Alright then. Iruka said. The first place goes to Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto hung his head at this news, this meant he failed. Hinata's father wouldn't allow them to train together anymore now that he didn't reach first place. And Naruto Uzumaki. Iruka continued. Naruto's head snapped back up at this news, wondering if he heard it correctly. What? The entire class shouted, what does that mean? They can't both be on first place. Can they? Yes, Iruka said, both Naruto and Sasuke scored 98 points total. So it's a tie. They both got first place. Naruto smiled at this news. Granted it was very unorthodox, the first time in 16 years Iruka said, but shared or not first place was first place. So he and Hinata would be allowed to continue their training. Sasuke had similar hopes. Being first still counts even if you had to share the position, did it? He just hoped his father would see it like that as well. Later that night there were several small celebrations in Konoha to congratulate those who passed their first year. Lucky for him, Sasuke's father did agree that being first counted even if it was a tie. Well, more specifically, Sasuke's mother Mikoto said that it still counted and sent a look at her husband that dared him to disagree. He knew better than to argue, so the entire clan was invited to celebrate the success. On the other side of town, the Hyugas held their own private celebration as well. Naruto and Kakashi were invited to join and both donned their finest kimono for the occasion. Apart from him and Hinata, there was a third guest of honor at the party. Hinata's cousin Neji. He also made the top spot in his class, and Hiashi insisted, despite some protest from the elders, because Neji was a branch member, that the party was in his honor as well. Naruto quickly found that he didn't get along well with Neji or most of the Hyugas for that matter. It seemed that Hinata's kindness and calm nature, which he liked best about her, was not a trait she shared with the rest of her family. Most of the Hyugas, including Neji, had a serious stick up their ass and an ego the size of the Hokage monument. He always taught Sasuke had a bit of an arrogant streak if he performed really well in a certain task, but now he had to reconsider that statement. Sasuke was downright humble compared to some of these guys' claims of the superiority of the Hyuga clan, and how lucky he was that he was allowed to train alongside a prodigy of the main house. Even Neji couldn't help but rub in that Naruto had to share his first place position, while he was the undisputed best of his class. Luckily, Hinata seemed to share his discomfort at the boasting of her family, and they even joked about it a few times when the rest of the Hyugas weren't listening. Eventually the night came to a close and he and Kakashi returned home. He said they were allowed to rest for the rest of the week and the training sessions would begin again the following week when they started their second year at the academy. Naruto was a little disappointed when he found out that students at the academy did not get a real vacation like the kids in the regular school. Iruka said that their skills would deteriorate too much if they didn't practice regularly. He explained that missions and enemies didn't stop because it was a holiday, so ninjas had to get used to working around the year and they started this philosophy in the academy. After their week off, the students returned to the academy for their second year. Mostly things continued on as usual, with Naruto and Sasuke constantly trying to one-up the other in every test, spar or training exercise. Hinata kept improving as well and soon secured her third place and then slowly began catching up until she eventually started winning several of the unofficial competitions as well. Eventually they also started on their first ninjutsu lessons. Naruto started fantasizing about breathing fire or summoning lightning and was thoroughly disappointed when Iruka started with a theoretical lesson about chakra theory and how to mold and gather it. He was even more disappointed when he said the only jutsus they would learn in the academy were the transformation jutsu, the substitution jutsu and the clone jutsu. The other jutsus were only available once they actually became genin, since they didn't want to just let anyone have access to destructive techniques. He quickly discovered two facts. One, he had a lot of chakra, even more than Iruka had apparently. But as a result of this, his actual control, which according to Mizuki was more important than just having raw chakra reserves, was the worst of the class. He compared it to trying to fill a teaspoon with a bathtub of water. He was more likely to wash the entire spoon away than come anywhere close to the impossibly small amount he needed to isolate. Luckily Kakashi foresaw that this might become a problem, so he started working Naruto on the leaf balancing exercise every day until, after a few weeks of improving his control, he managed to isolate enough of his reserves to use the transformation jutsu and the substitution jutsu without too much trouble. The clone jutsu remained difficult though, and he could only do it when he was extremely concentrated. Kakashi simply said that he should keep on improving his chakra control until it was good enough. 8 months into their second year. Hey, Hinata, have you seen Sasuke today? Naruto asked his friend. No, it looks like he didn't show up. Hinata answered. You think he is sick? Naruto asked. Maybe, we should visit him after class then. Or perhaps it has something to do with all the commotion last night, Naruto said. What do you mean? Hinata asked since she hadn't heard of anything happening last night. Well, last night there was a general alarm in the Anbu headquarters, Naruto explained. They summoned every available Anbu to the mission room. Apparently something really big must have happened. For a minute I thought Konoha was invaded or something. Really? Hinata asked in surprise. She already learned a few things about how the Anbu worked, and a general alarm was only issued for the most important events. Perhaps we can ask Kakashi-sensei later. I doubt it, Naruto said. If it's secret Anbu stuff he won't talk. Not even to us. Yeah, I guess, Hinata said. Oh, look, Iruka-sensei is finally here. Iruka had indeed entered the classroom with a defeated look on his face. The entire class noticed something was up when instead of Mizuki it was the director of the school who entered the classroom alongside Iruka. Even Shikamaru opened his eyes and started paying attention. Attention everyone, the director started. Classes have been dismissed for the rest of the week. Your parents have been notified and they will come pick you up shortly. The kids started talking amongst themselves until Sakura raised her hand and asked the question on everyone's lips. What happened? Why are classes cancelled? Iruka looked at the director asking a silent question to which the director gave a short nod. Last night, Iruka began, the Uchiha clan has been massacred inside their compound by an unknown assailant. The entire classroom exploded at that statement, everyone started talking and bombarded Iruka and the director with several questions until Naruto asked the one they all needed to know. Is Sasuke okay? Sasuke is alive, the director said to everyone's relief, but he is in a coma and is now being monitored at the hospital. So far he is the only known survivor. Before the kids could ask other questions the director excused himself and left the room. He was going to have to repeat this talk with the other classes as well and did not look forward to it. When they left the school Naruto and Hinata were awaited by Ko and Kakashi, who looked like he hadn't slept at all last night. Since you are his friends the Hokage allowed you to visit Sasuke, Kakashi said. Follow me. Your father has agreed, Lady Hinata Ko said with a sympathetic smile. The three of them followed Kakashi to the hospital and they walked into a secure ward until they arrived at a door guarded by 3 Anbu. Inside Sasuke was lying on a bed, his eyes were open but they looked glassy and he didn't respond to anything. The Hokage was standing next to the bed talking to a doctor. As you can see this isn't a regular coma. The doctor said. Physically speaking he is perfectly fine and Yamanaka confirmed that he does show signs of normal brain activity, something a regular coma patient doesn't have. So what do you think this is then? The Hokage asked. It looks like he is trapped in a jinjutsu, the doctor answered, but we never saw anything this strong. Not even the Kurama clan has any idea what caused this or how to undo it. Any ideas how to get him out of it? No, only someone like Lady Tsunade could break through a case like this. The doctor said in defeat. So what does that mean exactly? He will be like this forever? The third asked worried. No, the doctor explained, the technique, though extremely powerful, is still limited by its initial chakra supply, which is slowly running out. After a while it will start to lose power and he will wake up himself, but that could very well take a few weeks at this point. Meanwhile Naruto and Hinata had entered the room and stood by Sasuke's motionless body. Hinata was softly crying at the sight of their friend in such a state and Naruto put his arm around her shoulder to try and calm her down. In the meantime he subconsciously reached for Sasuke's hand for his own emotional support when he felt a sudden pulse emanating from his stomach before the world went black. Everyone watched in horror as Naruto suddenly dropped to the floor, his eyes just as glassy as Sasuke's. Hinata lost all self-control and started crying loudly when her other friend collapsed as well. Ko immediately rushed over to calm her down, while Kakashi went to Naruto. He lifted his shirt and saw to his horror that the seal on his stomach was fully activated. Does that mean what I think it means? He asked the Hokage who was kneeling beside him studying the seal. I'm afraid so, the seal responded to the technique and dragged Naruto inside the jinjutsu. The third said. So now what? Kakashi asked. With Naruto in there as well the technique will burn through its reserves a lot faster, especially if it wants to compensate for his. He looked at Hinata, who was still crying but paid attention nonetheless, unusual condition. He finished. At the very least they aren't alone, they can support each other now. The third said, we can only wait and trust them to make it out of their own at this point. Inside the mindscape, Naruto woke up inside the Uchiha district at the middle of the night. He started wandering the empty streets until he heard a deafening scream further ahead. He rushed over and saw Itachi Uchiha going through the district, killing everyone he met, while Sasuke was strapped to a cross being forced to watch the scene replay itself over and over, while he was crying and begged his brother to stop. Sasuke. Naruto yelled at his friend who suddenly looked up at the person who yelled his name. Nah, Naruto. Is that really you? He asked with his eyes still red from crying. Yes, I'll get yo down from there. Naruto said, don't move. Sasuke suddenly started laughing, slowly at first, but then he let everything out. Don't move, he said to no one in particular, I'm trapped and immobile, and he tells me not to move. Sasuke kept laughing. He knew it was stupid, he knew he shouldn't be laughing right now, but he just couldn't help it. His mind was too tired and tormented to make sense anymore, so he just let out everything without caring about the situation. Meanwhile Naruto was standing behind him looking at the cross and cursed a little, apparently getting Sasuke free wasn't as easy as he thought it would be. The world he found himself in didn't play by the rules. For one, he never saw anything that kept Sasuke trapped in the first place, for all he could see the cross was an illusion itself. Thinking about what they learned in the academy about dispelling Jinjutsu, because it was a Jinjutsu that much he could detect, he tried to mold his chakra and let it out in a pulse. Release. He shouted. He thought he saw the world flicker for a bit, but it ended as soon as it started, and he once again looked at the Uchiha district at night. He tried again, but this time the world didn't even flicker when he released his chakra. Naruto, what are you doing? Get me down from here already. Sasuke shouted. I'm trying, damn it, but I can't seem to break through this illusion. They never let us practice on one this strong at the academy. Naruto shouted back. Okay, now let's focus. What does the manual say when you can't dispel it yourself? Sasuke seemed to regain his composure. If you find yourself trapped in an illusion you cannot break out of, you can dispel it by having an ally enter his chakra in your system. The outside flow will disturb the Jinjutsu's own flow and dispel it. Naruto droned the lesson he learned from Iruka. Let's try that, pour your chakra in my body and it should release me. Sasuke said. Naruto nodded and placed his hand on Sasuke's back. He poured some of his chakra in his friend's body, and to their relief, it seemed to work as the cross he was hung up on suddenly disappeared and Sasuke fell down. Alright, it worked. Naruto shouted. Not really, Sasuke pointed out, we got rid of the cross, but we are still inside this illusion as a whole. Naruto looked around and noticed that they were indeed still inside the Uchiha district where Itachi kept going through the motions as if nothing happened. He even stopped to talk at the now empty cross, apparently not realizing his brother has been freed. He must have left you with nothing but a pre-recorded message, Naruto reasoned, without him here to adjust to changes the illusion can't adapt and keeps on playing the same scene again and again. But how do we break it? Sasuke asked. Well, I tried dispelling it before and it seemed to work for a second. Naruto pondered, maybe if we both try at the same time we can break through it. They both focused their chakra and released it at the same time. Release. The world around them flickered again and for half a second they found themselves in what appeared to be a sewer. They saw a set of eyes looking up at them from behind a giant cage before they were suddenly thrown back into the illusion of the Uchiha compound. What was that? They both asked at the same time. Did it work or not? And what was that sewer about? Suddenly the world around them started shaking as if a giant earthquake hit Konoha. They looked up and saw that the very sky started cracking open and red tendrils made of chakra poured inside the illusion, destroying it from the inside out. The world started flickering again as if the illusion refused to be dispelled, but soon the chakra tendrils broke completely through and the world crumbled to pieces under the strain. Naruto and Sasuke found themselves being thrown inside the sewer again and looked up to see all the chakra tendrils retreat into the cage they came from. They gasped as they saw who their rescuer was. Before them in all its glory stood an enormous fox with 9 distinct tails swinging behind him, looking down at the two of them. And what do we have here? His booming voice filled the room. Does my host finally grant me a visit? He chuckled before looking at Sasuke. And Uchiha. The fox suddenly roared, what is a member of that accursed clan doing here? He demanded. What are you talking about? Naruto shouted back, who are you and what are you doing here? Are we still under the Jinjutsu? The giant fox started laughing. Sure, I'll tell you everything. Now why don't you remove that seal over there? He pointed to a piece of paper on the gate with the kanji for seal on it so we can talk more freely. Huh? Do you think we are stupid? Sasuke suddenly interrupted, we aren't going to release you. You're obviously a demon. Ha. At least one of you has a brain. The fox said. Just answer our questions, damn it. Naruto snapped, who are you and what are you doing here? You mean you really don't know? The fox asked incredulous, surely your Hokage must have told you who you are. Why do you think you heal so fast? Or why you have such outrageous chakra reserves for a human? Sasuke's curiosity was piqued now, he did always wonder how Naruto, supposedly a clanless orphan, was so good or had so much chakra. Stop playing games and tell us what you know, Naruto demanded again. You got guts, kid, I like that. Very well then, the fox said, I'll humor you once. I am the QB, the nine-tailed demon fox and greatest of all the demons. QB? Naruto and Sasuke shouted in disbelief, but that can't be. You're dead. Of course I am the QB. The fox roared, displeased that they wouldn't believe him. How many other giant foxes with 9 tails do you know of? But why are you alive? Didn't the 4th Hokage kill you 8 years ago? Sasuke asked. You idiots. You cannot kill a demon, for I am immortal. Even if I am defeated, I would simply reform myself over time, the QB said quite proudly. Then what are you doing here? Naruto asked, and why did you save us? I grow tired of your questions. The QB said, ask that leader of yours, he knows the answers. And as for why I saved you too. Let's just say you are useless to me as a brain-dead puppet. Now leave me alone. The fox laid its head down and started to rest. Naruto and Sasuke seemed unsure of what to do and decided to try and wake up. Suddenly Naruto started blinking and looked up at the white ceiling of the hospital. He groaned and slowly stood up from the bed and looked around. Next to him Sasuke started waking up as well, but unlike Naruto, he seemed to have more difficulty orienting himself. You're awake. The two of them suddenly found themselves tightly embraced by a crying Hinata. I was so worried about you. Hinata, stop hugging so tight, I can't breathe. Sasuke said, while his face started coloring purple. Hinata let go of them and merely smiled seeing them move again. Naruto, Sasuke, I'm glad to see you two are fine. The voice of the Hokage suddenly interrupted, would you mind telling us what happened? Sasuke started talking about everything that happened the night before, how Itachi killed the clan and had a weird Sharingan I never saw before, and then placed him in an illusion where he had to watch his clan being killed all over again until Naruto suddenly appeared. Naruto took over and discussed how he managed to free Sasuke. The Hokage listened intently, but his face paled when Naruto finally said the one thing he was afraid of. And he said he was the QB, but why was the QB there and why did he save us? He said you knew the answer. Kakashi and the Hokage looked at each other not sure what to do while Naruto, Sasuke and Hinata, who heard everything, looked at them with a questioning look. This isn't the time and place to discuss this. The Hokage finally said, come to my office tomorrow and I'll explain everything. In the meantime you two should rest. He pointed at Naruto and Sasuke who were finally beginning to feel how tired their bodies were and you should return to your family, they must be worried as well. He said to Hinata. The three of them nodded and the Hokage left the room. He had a lot of explaining to do tomorrow and he did not look forward to it. That's it, thanks for watching.